So I really don't know if this is going to shut off. It was like literally just showing that my storage is full and now it's available suddenly. But I pulled this like spread and it's kind of interesting, significant. I'm tired and I was going to go to bed, but get some sleep. Tomorrow's a really big day. It's the first day of the rest of my life, you know, but just kind of felt like I needed to record this and to see if I get any other downloads concerning it. So what ended up being at the bottom of the deck was, well, this was the very first one that I cut. I actually, like, I don't always put them in order, but I put them in order and actually shuffled it really well. And this is the very first one I saw when I split it to shuffle it the first time. And so I kind of crossed it on top of the bottom of the deck, which was Death in the Reverse. And so basically being stuck in cycles relating to like hedonism, not being able to control like desires, and just like folly and like things that kind of get in the way of hunkering down and being serious and closing out like toxic cycles that don't really evolve a person. And so what was really interesting is the first card that I pulled under what is influencing the situation was actually the King of Swords. And the Knight of Cups is basically kind of like what's been in the way and blocking, you know, the, I would say, I guess, evolution of the King of Swords as, and like one of the most powerful or most known archetypes of all time ever, a very famous king, had kind of like two different phases of his life. And so without naming any names, looking at these two together kind of like really sort of made me think of that story. And so basically what's kind of been getting in the way of the King of Swords, like achieving his like mastery and his power, his war mastery, his dominance, his ruling, his evolution into a man, I guess, is the sort of like Knight of Cups energy of kind of like the player, somebody that always really did have good pure intentions, but, you know, illusions in front of the face being blocking his view, but also sometimes being things that he also cast upon the situation or others in his story. So I'm going to put this behind the Master King of Mastery here. So basically kind of in the past situation and, you know, just the past, the events building up to things, majority of kind of the underlying focus of things basically is the Six of Wands in the reverse, being not necessarily giving like recognition for work, not being seen authentically or you know, for really what one represents, not being recognized. And then also 10 of Wands with that. Somebody that works really hard but is not recognized, and also finding themselves in a place of burnout, like a falling bird that is having a hard time flying just because of all of the work put into things, but not necessarily like seeing the results. What was interesting is like when in the position like number 7, like you, yourself, your power, how you see things. This is the only card that actually came out sideways, and it was a 7 of Pentacles. So it's like really actually kind of a similar, sort of the same thing. Like not necessarily seeing harvest on the fruits of your labor. Kind of being like stuck in like a vortex, or almost like trapped behind a mirror sort of a thing. So actually in the past got the Five of Wands and conflict, holding back. The Knight of Swords and holding back. Somebody that has all intentions to press forward in a very powerful way, but again, like disagreements, disputes, expectations, conflicts, causing the Knight of Swords to remain in the reverse. Like I said, not press forward in all that the Knight of Swords wants to do or be or communicate or be seen as to achieve this or be recognized as the King of Swords. It could be like a self-imposed sort of image. It could be communication breakdowns and barriers, like misunderstanding, being misunderstood. So yeah, other people's opinions, or stories or narratives of one, but also I feel like self-perceived in a way, as that kind of does seem to reflect, even if we don't want to like directly acknowledge it. Sometimes that is the power of one. What's in your power to do is to change your narrative within yourself so that others are forced to follow and recognize and respect. And also I feel like that is what can keep somebody in that like Knight of Cups energy, and that sort of immature, young, not quite so serious energy. Is like, if other people aren't taking you seriously, then why take yourself seriously? You know, it's like, I was put on the bad apple tree. You know, might as well live up to those expectations, sort of a thing. So just stuff holding one back is the power of others, and not necessarily like cooperating or coming into line or being supportive so much, but like actually sort of like, you know, resistance. I guess resistance, really, to sum it up in one word. And so kind of like the present moving on to the future, we've got the Nine of Cups and basically like a trophy room full of accolades, which is interesting because it really does play into that Knight of Cups energy there. And then this is so cool because they actually do add up to 10 with the Ace of Cups and the new opportunity that actually, like, in this one really represents purity. Purity of love, purity of intent. So you've got your like trophy case of like accolades, or sorry, it's late, I'm having a hard time finding words. Not necessarily accomplish, conquer what you've conquered. Notches in the belt, on the bed stand, the headboard. Like I said, it's late and I'm tired. But anyways, it's like almost when all that is put behind one, knocked out of the way, and then actually the one, the purity, is added to that. What ends up being in the future outcome actually was the Ten of Cups. And I'm telling you, this is what I pulled, and this was even actually after putting the deck in order and shuffling really well. It's pretty amazing. So basically the final outcome is to leave behind the past and what you've known your whole life, and journey towards basically peace, harmony, contentment, a simple life. It's almost like a little tiny home on a homestead sort of a thing with that Ace of Cups. This is like all laid together very beautifully, and why I couldn't justify just putting it back up without actually making a video and posting it. There's definitely like water and sailing references, and just that like final journey, that final voyage, that final trip made towards basically a settlement, meaning that like literally and figuratively, but like to be settled in oneself, in one's life, in one's future, in one's purpose and find a final resting place. And I don't mean that in like the death sort of way, but you know, although everything does expire, everyone has an expiration date concerning their present course and being and body that they're in. I mean that in the way of rest, a resting place before that, where you can achieve this, your mastery, the maturity of the second phase of one's existence. So I kind of talked about this a little bit already, but the Seven of Pentacles having come out sideways, meaning that working towards harvest, but sometimes that just like not manifesting. I don't know if it's the vultures coming and eating the seeds, or if it's the ground is too rocky, or you know, other weather conditions, or you know, which that's like sort of like exterior forces.
I never stop loving you.
I love you too. Good night. So basically self-perception and your power, one's own power, or their influence on the situation. And so it's just kind of interesting though, if you look at that with the elements, and the analogy of that, but yet it being the position of one's own power, meaning that possibly like your surroundings, your settings, your weather exposure, what you choose to plant, things like that is something that can be in one's power. And maybe that's where the thing went wrong and the harvest wasn't as wished for or anticipated. And so possibly that's what could be in one's power, is to actually move away from what they've known and what hasn't worked in the past, you know, so that it can be turned upright. And so what was kind of next actually are the influences. And that's basically just like a new way of thinking, closing your eyes to what you have seen and observed, and opening your mind and the light shining, and therefore seeing things in a new way, in a new type of clarity, with your spiritual eyes, because the physical eyes are closed in this, but with like a spiritual mindset, maybe a spiritual intellect. And then this crown actually does have some foliage on it as well. So I don't know if that relates to like growth in some way. If that is the growth, the ticket, the way of mastery is to finally close one's eyes to what they've seen and known in order to see things from an elevated perspective. Getting your crown back also, I feel like, because sometimes others can sort of take advantage of that. And then basically like the hopes and fears, and that what this leads up to is the star. And so basically, again, it's a place of, you know, making a wish and seeing the light in the darkness. And it's really interesting. And the way she sort of even described it in the booklet is how this girl is like refined and dressed up and like classy, but yet she's up there in the mountains with trees. And so, you know, it's not typically like camping wear or camping gear, but, you know, she's just shining, standing out of her environment, or his environment, her environment, one's environment, standing out and shining and being decorated. And that could be even thought about in the way of like a military sort of a sense, but basically being adorned. And I feel like that is almost sort of like the opposite of what happened here. And also like healing and shining a light on how one can heal oneself and their own worlds, but also heal the whole earth with seeing the mountains and the trees there, healing nature and impacting the universe, like being seen. I feel like she's also being seen by the stars as much as she's focusing on the stars, and I can definitely relate to this. This is my favorite thing to do, is to stargaze until I get a big kink in my neck. But anyways, so then the like most likely outcome, the final outcome, and what all of this leads to, which is amazing, not getting your harvest, but yeah, like needing to open up your eyes by closing them to see things from a different perspective, and making your wish, and being guided by the star leads to the magician, which leads to mastery, which leads to alchemizing and manifesting. It looks like all four like elements are here in this, so basically a balanced, wholesome approach to where every single aspect of oneself is dealt with, maintained, and thereby producing the results of being able to produce results and alchemize. And if this isn't the final outcome of this, then what the true desire of the King of Swords and the true intentions of the King of Swords is not necessarily that Knight of Cups energy, but it really truly is to alchemize from a balanced and whole state of being, an eternal cycle, an eternal process, which like the snake chasing its tail here, as well as the like imagery of the infinity. My brain hurts. the figure 8 being like basically alchemizing from a place of leaving a legacy, a lasting legacy, and having that be more of something eternal and something that you believe is going to carry on from this lifetime into the next lifetime. As the, like I said, the imagery is, it's ever flowing, it's infinity, it's eternal, it's the snake chasing its tail. So then I don't even know like what happened here. I feel like this chunk sort of just like flew out and went together, and so I grabbed it, not really knowing what it was clarifying, and then I was trying to figure it out because it almost looks like something like not so kind with the Page of Cups in reverse, not a well-intended sort of actions, were coupled with the Wheel of Fortune in reverse, which almost is like plagiarism, thieving, and then the King of Pentacles also being the reverse, feeling like that's like, I don't know, unhealthy obtainment of finances. And then it almost looks like, it almost looked like somebody was going into prison. But like if the Hierophant was replaced by the, say the Judgment or Justice card, I would feel like that would like sort of make that storyline fit a little bit better. So I don't know if it necessarily like meant that as I was like just looking at this, and part of why I'm tired, because it like took me a good couple hours to finally get to recording it, and want to go to bed, so yeah. But so then actually, so when I looked at this as in the perspective of this, maybe what I figured out is that it's the process of you know, becoming from the Knight of Cups to the King of Swords, and that whole like transition, evolution of that, basically, you know, being like sort of like, I don't know, immature like love prospects, possibly sort of shallow connections, not so well intending connections, people that say they love you, but maybe they don't necessarily love you. Maybe they love them, and so they love you because you contribute to them and what they want or their needs. And same thing like with the Seven of Cups, like especially with it being sideways, with it upside down can actually sort of mean like, well, with it right side up, it can mean like sort of like people pleasing and bringing other people into the mix too much and being stuck in that sort of like way of living and thinking. So basically breaking free from like people pleasing and not necessarily just focusing on yourself and quieting yourself to focus on yourself, to get the death card in the upright and to finish out cycles. And so here we are back here, and then also like, I don't know, improper